Everybody say hello to Hannah Chalker there, as well as Gabe Garrett and Nick Lurch. Yeah, thanks. Nick saying you're here. You guys have no idea. It's fun. It's interesting. I love that we make this work every week. And when you're dealing with me, it's my miracle. Uh, but technology is so fickle in any form that it is. Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Shirley is in the house. Several other people. Welcome to Towers Take, brought to you by Marco's Pizza. As everybody here knows, Marco's Pizza is America's #1 pizza company, and right now, you can take advantage of their delicious double play, two cheese pizzas, medium cheese pizzas for just $7.99 each, or two. Excuse me, not cheese pizzas. Pardon me, Mr. Gianmarcos and everybody out there. Two topping pizzas for $7.99. So that's a great deal. I've already had mine this week. I may have another one tonight. Hello, Coach Winslet. Good to see you. It's the dog days of summer. Everybody's running around here and there trying to get their vacations in. Just being informed that Russell Henley is leading the U.S. Open Bulldog, several Bulldogs in the tournament this year, 4 or 5, I think it was. And Henley, I tuned in when he was leading outright by a bit at 3 under. Last I saw, he had fallen back to 1 under, but was still tied with a number of others in first place. I love the U.S. Open golf tournament. Love the Masters. I'm paying homage to golf in general with my Masters shirt on here today. But love the U.S. Open, love playing golf and the U.S. Open in particular. Always an exciting tournament. David Duke's providing an update. Tiger is +8. And again, when I saw Tiger, he was doing pretty good. He was 3 over after that awful triple bogey on the first hole, but he had really settled down, gotten a birdie on a par 5. So I guess he's coming back. Hello, Wayne Carroll. I believe that's Wayne Carroll from Calhoun, Georgia. Let's see, where are you coming from farthest away? Mel Gilbert is watching. I'm not sure what to make of that. I'm assuming that's not the Hollywood star, though he could be a Bulldog fan like many others are. So anyway, hello, Sweaterman is here as well. Sweaterman's always here. Hello, Jesse Kinney. I know you're excited about the Georgia basketball program. What to talk about? I'm going to base this tonight largely on questions and see what it is that you want to have answered. Obviously, we're at the point where it's really quietening down. On the football front, Kirby and his staff just got through with some camps, hosting some recruits through there. Yeah, Nick Lurch from Daniel said, I don't think you get farthest away today, Daniel. Nice try. We do have Flagler Beach, Florida. I wish I was down there right now. Probably getting crowded down there toward Daytona and all that. Eufaula, Alabama, Roosevelt Davis. What a beautiful town that is. Maybe it's just because I'm in such a good mood when I go through there on my way to Panama City or Destin, the Gulf. I always go through Eufaula, Alabama. Beautiful down there. Love to buy one of those old houses one day on the main thoroughfare, though they may get tired of that traffic coming through there. I don't know. Hello, Tony Jackson. So, what do we got going on? I mean, Jeff Sentell is really carrying the football for us right now. Lots of stuff going on in recruiting, and he keeps you up on it. It was interesting this week for me in one of my Towers takes. I weighed in on Georgia's recruiting class, and that is ranked #1, as you may have noticed. And I just asked the hypothetical question: should they still be #1 based on the developments of losing a couple of guys? Man, you'd have thought I said, something about Kirby Smart's mama, who I know and have a great deal of respect for, and I like Mrs. Smart very much. Anyway, I don't think a lot of people read it actually, because my conclusion was that, yeah, it should still be ranked number one. And obviously, they don't re-rank the classes anyway. I mean, you're ranked number one on National Signing Day or the week after National Signing Day, based on all those metrics. You're going to stay number one. But it does bear mentioning who gets in and doesn't get in. But actually, which was part of this idea for my Towers take, I talked to Jeff Sentell and just made sure I understood what the how it was calculated, and Georgia would still be number one, as it turns out, even losing the two guys, and that's not to take into account to gaining Jay Hayes. So look, that wasn't my attempt to rip Georgia's recruiting class. I think it's a great recruiting class, and too bad that the kid from Florida didn't qualify and had to go junior college. That was not unexpected, based on everything I know about the situation. And Baton Rouge, Louisiana is here now. So anyway, that was an interesting thing to find out, how people react to that stuff. Here's the first question about it. I didn't see who asked it. Is James Cook still on track? My understanding is he is. James Cook's situation, and Jeff and I, neither one like to get down in the weeds about this stuff. I mean, the bottom line is, you have until fall semester to get in, and so it really didn't matter. I mean, everybody comes in early now. There was a time that wasn't the case. But my understanding, after changing his pledge class from 2019 to 2018, that got James Cook behind a little bit, and he ended up having some more work to do. And I think that guy, no, it wasn't clickbait. The headline wasn't clickbait. I mean, it was just asking a question. It's almost like a question of the day. Today's question of the day should be posted about now on Dog Nation. Had a good question. I'm trying to remember what the guy's name was. Wish I could remember. I could call you out. Tony Jackson saying rumor is summer school. And that's what's going on here with James Cook. Like I've said, and I think Jeff has said in similar forms as this, that's what we expect it to be. But question of the day was on McCole Hardman. Does he need to get the ball more, is what the question was. It's interesting when you get, and he was comparing him to Percy Harvin in Florida, and actually the comparison is really good. I actually don't think I got into this in the story that much. I was really breaking down McCole Hardman as a receiver and putting it in some different context. Context is different. He is extremely similar to Percy Harvin, physically and obviously with his speed. Very few players are in the SEC are as fast as McCole Hardman, as his participation in SEC men's track will attest. But there's also, I get into a lot of detail on how the flanker position is utilized in Georgia's offense, Georgia's offensive philosophy and all those kind of things. Suffice it to say, I think McCole Hardman will get the ball more this year. But you still got DeAndre Swift to feed. You still got Zamir White. If and when James Cook gets here, you're going to want to get a look at him. Certainly Elijah Holyfield deserves a chance this year, as does Brian Harrion. And all those guys really are exceptional. I got a problem here. For some reason, that I'm not always seeing who's asking the question, so I apologize if I answer a question is not yours. Like John Anthony, I can see that now. Says McCole Hardman is an Elberton kid. I think most everybody knows that here. Great kid, in fact. If you want to Google some good reading, I happen to think it's good reading, but I did a Next Generation story on McCole Hardman when he was a freshman, and he was a terrific mentor to some young kids over there at Elbert Elementary School, and did a lot of good work over there. Christopher Metcalf points out here that McCole Hardman has star all over him. Hey, y'all be sure now, our numbers are a little lower than usual tonight, to share this feed. Share this feed on your Facebook page, and we'll see if we can't get a few more people on here. And John Burke actually, drills down on exactly what my core message was on this. Just too many weapons. It's a great problem to have, but Jim Chaney, who is the play caller, remains the play caller as offensive coordinator, but is now sharing coordinator duties with James Coley. Has a lot of mouths to feed over there on that offense. Number one is DeAndre Swift. I think he'll touch the ball more than anybody else on the offense this fall, besides Jake Fromm. Obviously, he'll get it from under center every time, and that's going to be an issue. I'm having problems with this. I don't have my my normal setup, so when I'm trying to get your questions, I'm having some problems here. I apologize. Y'all bear with me here. Jeffrey Lane says he's sharing the feed now. I appreciate that. You guys do that, and we'll drive a few more people on here and get a few more questions. And who is this? Jarvis Hanna. Do you think that James Cook can be a Tavin Austin type of player? Yeah, I do. Everything I've heard about Cook is that way. He was was he listed as a so Nash? I mean, he got a 5-star rating from maybe Rivals, I think it is, and he's listed as like an all-purpose back or something like that. Not your traditional back. The number one back in the country in that regard is Zamir White, who also happens to be on Georgia. And based on these new redshirt rules that the NCAA has rolled out, and I hope to weigh in on that a little bit later. You're going to want to get Zamir White a look at some point. I don't think Georgia needs to be in a rush to do that. We've talked about that many times here in this forum. There's just a lot of guys that deserve to get the ball. Think about, Riley Ridley was really rolling at the end of the year, and nobody ever talks about Terry Godwin. Little T, y'all have heard me talk about him before, but one of the top upperclassmen in the country last year for wide receiver rating, which is just based on the number of times you're targeted, what happens with the ball, and good things tend to happen with the ball when Terry Godwin catches it. Plus, he tends to catch it, so he doesn't drop it. Hello, Fred Pittman. Good to see you here. So don't go to sleep on Terry Godwin. Riley Ridley, there's a lot of those young guys, J.J. Holloman, the new guys coming in like Tommy Bush, you're going to want to get a look at, and so many weapons. And then now drives Kirby Smart crazy. But people are always talking about the tight ends. Why don't we throw the tight ends more? And it's a good point. I mean, I think Isaac Nauta and certainly Charlie Warner now you got Luke Ford and some other new additions coming in there. They all deserve a chance to catch the ball, though those guys are here first and foremost as blockers. Isaac Nauta, though, as we've seen several times, can be a terrific weapon as a receiver, but that's not his primary job as Georgia's quarterback. Hello, Raphael Shaw. Good to see you. Good question about the third quarterback. I haven't delved into that. I apologize. I haven't committed the walk-ons beyond Stetson Bennett to heart, and Sam Vaughn has moved on as well. I mentioned him a little bit in a story I did, I guess it was last week. They're running together now on Rashad Roundtree and those guys doing an internship with Racetrack, but the Towers Take, as it was on how difficult it is to make it, no matter what you're and Rashad Roundtree is one of those guys that had 5 stars. And then so you got to wonder about the third string quarterback. We got some video. I don't know if we're timed up just right on it in my comments, but Justin Fields is going to want to get the ball a little bit. You're going to see what he can do as well. So there's a lot of considerations to be made on the offensive side of the ball. All that is good. Julie Craig asked a good question here, and those of you weigh in regularly probably know the answer, but she asked, "Do you think UGA will rely more on the pass this year?" And I do. I think that's a natural progression between Jake Fromm being a second-year quarterback, between Georgia having more weapons in that regard, and then DeAndre Swift, being maybe better utilized in that way. Not that Sony Michel wasn't and couldn't be, but certainly there toward the end of his career, he was just a primary straight ahead runner. Sony was, and all those other skills are going to serve him well in the NFL. But there's a lot to consider on that side of the ball. That's offense is not where the concern is. I wouldn't think on Georgia's team. Period. There's a lot of concern. Actually, David Dukes points out a good. He's concerned about the leadership void, and you must have been listening to Kirby or some of this stuff because that's some of his concern. He believes that there are players that have that type of ability to lead, but until you do it in the throes of a season, you can't be sure. So he's trying to identify those guys. He's trying to get some of them to do it. Like, for instance, Isaiah Wynn was a huge leader on Georgia's line last year. He's being replaced by kind of a quiet-spoken freshman in Andrew Thomas at left tackle. That said, I think Lamont Gilliard, and that's the correct pronunciation of his name, despite how it's spelled, is a good leader at center. Undersized guy, really smart guy though. Has played his butt off for Georgia to stay in there, and as Tony Jackson points out, quite appropriately, leaders emerge in combat, and that's you can identify them until the cows come home, but until you get out there in games and make yourself into a leader. And I think Jake Fromm, sophomore though he is obviously huge in that regard. So he's going to take on some of that load. What about DeAndre Swift? I mean, he's a quiet-spoken guy. I've only talked to him a couple of times last year because as a freshman he wasn't available for interviews. Generally, those freshmen, don't lead anyway. But I don't know what kind of a leader he is. But generally, if you're going to be your primary offensive weapon, which I expect DeAndre Swift to be, you're going to have to take on some type of leadership role. Sony Michel was very slow in coming to that. Nick Chubb too. Never been very, very outspoken. We have the resident questions about defensive tackle and secondary as usual. I do believe there is some leadership on that defensive side of the ball, even though there's a lot of transition. I think Jonathan Ledbetter has gone out of his way to identify himself as such, and J.R. Reed as well, which is really interesting. Ledbetter, a guy who had some issues getting started at Georgia, but really has gotten on the straight and narrow track and is a leader on the field and off of it, as we understand. J.R. Reed, comes here as a walk-on, and everybody thinks a throw-in for D'Angelo Gibbs. Billy Huey asking a question about him now. We now are going to do the bell on D'Angelo Gibbs as well. But J.R. Reed has turned out to be a great player, getting a lot of All-America and preseason All-SEC mention. Preseason magazine's starting to come out now. I don't know if you've seen your Phil Still, but it's out. A lot of the other ones are starting to come out now, and you'll see J.R. Reed and Jonathan Ledbetter on a lot of those lists. Who's asking this question? Let me see here. I got to go backwards. Brandon Vernon wants to know, where do you and Jeff put this backdrop in your house? They roll up quite nicely, and you can put them away. Hello, Nelson Carswell. Good to see you. Ben Cleveland is the third year. I know we got some people out there trying to hit the Ben Cleveland bell. It's the Ben Cleveland and D'Angelo Gibbs bell. Ben Cleveland really came into his own toward the end of last season. And look, everybody's talking about Jamari Sawyer and, to some degree, Trey Hill. The freshman guard that came in. There he is, Big Ben. Cleveland. And Ben looks fantastic physically. All of those guys do. But you know who does also? And I mean, it's interesting the way we forget about this is Notori Johnson. Notori Johnson was a big deal in that 2017 class. Was late in arriving, such as James Cook is this year. But he did get in, and he has really transformed his body. Looks a whole lot better. And Big Ben does too. I mean, Big Ben is completely remade his body, and they're still just big. It's just a big old team. Solomon Kinley is still here and going to contribute. Dan Varnado wants to know how many quarterbacks are coming in. I would imagine there's going to be quite a few that come in via the quarterback walk-on route. I would, if I were a walk-on quarterback, Georgia would be a place I would look at right now. Because, folks, I mean, I know a lot of you, you kind of like, it's the third string quarterback, but there is so many instances where a third string quarterback, is needed just in practice every week, third and fourth string, but also utilized and ready in games. I mean, you got to have a third guy ready to go in there in most cases. It's not beyond the realm of possibility to see two guys get knocked out, either by fluke or whatever. As I've mentioned, Georgia's gone through 5 before in a season. Even when Mike Bobo was here and broke his leg, it was several years. When Quincy Carter came the great exodus of quarterbacks. I mean, you got to keep quarterbacks coming in. Hal Love asked a recruiting question: why is Georgia so cold in recruiting? Glad you asked that, Hal. Even though I'm not Jeff Sintel, I can tell you that Georgia's recruiting is just fine. I mean, if you look at this time last year, when people were saying about Georgia's 2018 class, they had obviously done more work than they have to this point, but it's not going to be as big of a class, number one. Overall, I would be, strange things have happened, but I'd be very surprised if they get 25 again. I believe you have some major commitments coming here in the coming weeks. This is the time when you start getting them again, between June and the end of July, when you're heavy on the camps. And, that will all happen in due time. So be patient on that. I mean, the one thing that I don't think you have to worry about on Kirby and this staff is they are going to recruit well, and they're going to recruit competitively. And that's going to be interesting to see. This is a good comment here from, wait a minute, messing up here on my thing. Cotty Arnold asking about we should have one of the best O-lines in the country, if not the best. And that's going to be interesting to see. I don't think that nationally Georgia's line gets quite that much respect, because they see, what Georgia lost, in particular, in Isaiah Wynn from the left tackle. Also right tackle as well. So what are they going to do at those positions? I think Georgia's going to be just fine on the offensive line, and in fact should be very, very good. 17, 18 to choose from overall, all of them very, very highly touted when they came out of school, and obviously getting good work with Pittman and all them. Let's see this right here. Mel Gilbert says he hadn't heard much about Nate McBride. Nate McBride comes up pretty often in this format. I mean, these guys, it's really in this realm about this time that you quit hearing about them after they've come in as a highly touted freshman, and before they roll out as a senior. There's kind of a purgatory that they're in, and that's where Nate McBride is right now, and we call it purgatory because we don't see him out there starring, but he's on just about every special teams. He's moved up the depth chart as a linebacker this year. You'll see him on the field more and more, and I do think Nate McBride has proven his worth as a college football player, and it'll be more and more going on. I'm finally having to hold this thing over here now to keep it from falling down and being able to see what you say. Tony Jackson says right here, Nate's going to get a shot. Not everybody is right out of the box. Carlos Cardoza is talking about Hot Rod. How is he doing in this offseason? I'll tell you what, The thing about Hot Rod I saw the other day was Georgia had one of those, I call them hype videos, but they were just doing something on their summer workouts. And, um, you know, Rod, it's gotten just bigger and bigger since he's been here. And you see him in the background of, they got these just giant dudes doing all kinds of weightlifting stuff. And Rod is right there in the middle of them. Rodrigo Blankenship, and he's in great shape and getting stronger and stronger. And I guess at this point, it's only get. Uh, I don't know if his father is concerned about that. He's his primary coach, but just don't get too big. Just keep that flexibility and everything you need as a kick. Kevin Butler was kind of the same way, and Rex Robinson, a lot of other kickers have embraced that. You are part of the team, and it really endears you to the rest of your teammates as a kicker when you're in there busting and grinding in the weight room just as hard as they are. So you can really tell. You think about little spindly Rodrigo Blankenship, who showed up as a redshirt walk-on or as a walk-on freshman to what he is today. And, well, I think at this point he'll get a professional shot as a place kicker, but maybe he'll look to return into soccer at some point. He was a very good soccer player, and he's a strong, big dude. He could be a really good defender, or if not, some kind of center half or something, strong guy, or maybe rugby. You could see that. Cotty Arnold's telling us that Ryan Davis is committing soon, and I've heard that, and that's the thing too. Another thing about Georgia's kind of slow roll on recruiting, and Jeff Sentell, I'm sure, tells you this in his same format, but those of us who've covered recruiting for a long time, realize that. I mean, when you're shooting for the top of the top, those guys don't commit in March and April and May. It's much later generally, and a lot of times you already got things figured out with these guys, but they're just doing things on their own time. So we'll see. Carlos, I don't think they're going to find a place for Kevin Butler on the staff, not on the coaching staff. Kevin's got a lot of options. Now that he's got his degree, he could do a lot of different things. I think Kevin would be interested in doing something more permanent for the university, but I'm not 100% sure that he wants to be one of the assistant coaches. But I know he would like to help Georgia in any capacity that he possibly can. We only have about a minute left here, so get your questions here. I need to remind you that this is Towers Take, brought to you by Marco's Pizza. Marco's Pizza is America's #1 pizza company, and you can also right now take advantage of their delicious double play, which is 2 medium pizzas, 2 topping pizzas for $7.99 a piece. So if you're hungry, as soon as we hop off of here, go to marcos.com and you can order that up in a flash. And when you set your profile with your local Marcos, man, they can get your pizza to you really quick, just like you like it. Brandon Robertson, this is a better question for Jeff because of the Owen Pappoe stuff. Do you believe the ship has sailed completely for Owen Pappoe? No. I mean, that guy's of the ilk that Georgia's and Kirby Smart in particular is not going to give up on him. I'm sure they're recruiting just as hard, if not harder, than they were before. And, Georgia has a lot of players at that position right now. It's a big reason that Owen decided to go to the Plains, but Georgia has not given up on him, and there's still a lot of people out there who believe he'll end up at Georgia eventually. Thank you very much, Jeffrey Lane. That's a nice comment. Thank you, David Dukes. Thank you, Nick Lurch. We ended up getting a pretty good crowd on here. Remember to always share these broadcasts. We've got a lot of news coming down the pipe from Dog Nation, both on Georgia and otherwise. Al Love reminds me to ask Kirby the tough questions at Media Day. And that's funny. I kind of got a reputation for that, but Kirby's fine, and I'm fine, and George is fine. Let me think. Is there anything else? No. I think generally we'll be on every week at this time. The Tower Steak brought to you by Facebook, brought to you by Marco's Pizza on Facebook Live. I'm sorry, a little much, too much going on here. Carlos insists that he's going to go get his Marco's Pizza right now. So I appreciate it. Sorry for this. Winging a little bit here today. But thank you to Hannah Chalker back in the studios in Atlanta, and everybody at Dog Nation. Be sure to click on dognation.com. And if you don't already have it, your Dog Nation app, yeah, that's absolutely what you need to have. So you can get all your free University of Georgia sports content at your fingertips anytime. I'm going to go back to watching the U.S. Open and doing a little work here and there for you guys for the stories you'll see on Dog Nation. So until next week, for everybody in Atlanta and everybody at Dog Nation, night, y'all.